Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey there, welcome back to the Stepmom Side podcast. I'm your host, Alicia, and this is the third episode in the mini-series that I'm doing. So if you're new, welcome. There's two prior to this one. Let's just jump into this one. If you've ever said, I know why this upset me, so I should be over it now. Hi, welcome. This podcast episode is for you. Because just because you can reframe something doesn't necessarily mean that you should. I find sometimes as stepmoms, we start to explain ourselves out of our feelings. And so we're going to work on stop explaining ourselves out of our feelings. So there's intellectualizing versus processing, which is a little bit deeper. So let's define this clearly. Intellectualizing is understanding, analyzing, explaining, reframing, and maybe because you're a stepmom, you overanalyze, you overunderstand, you overexplain, you overreframe, you overthink everything, right? So let's do what's processing. Processing is feeling, naming, allowing, that's a big one, allowing and releasing. So you're feeling the feeling, right? I'm feeling mad, let's be mad then. I'm going to name it, I am mad. And you're going to actually allow yourself to be angry. And here's something that's a little bit tricky, is when we are in this situation of feeling angry or resentful or mad or pissed off or frustrated or annoyed or overwhelmed or all of those things, sometimes we just stay in that and get stuck there, and that's not a good idea either. So I absolutely am a huge proponent for, or huge advocate for, allow yourself to be those things. And if you've been in a coaching call with me, you've heard me say a million times over, you can be upset, you can be all of the things, but let's not stay there. So let's set a timer, start at 30 minutes, work your way down, but allow yourself to feel those feelings, because if you just try to shove it down, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not actually processing it, right? And then after you feel those things, release them. And I feel like stepmoms are elite, Olympic gold medalists, top performers, top athletes, just elite intellectualizers. We skip the feeling part and go straight to, it makes sense. I get it. I shouldn't take this personally, which honestly sounds healthy until it isn't, right? So let's now talk about why explaining too fast blocks that release. When you explain your feelings instead of feeling them, your body doesn't get the message that it's safe to let go. So that emotion stays trapped. And I see this a lot on office hours or in a coaching call where a stepmom, I can tell, I obviously know what somebody looks like when they're going to cry. I have cried too. And I can tell that they're trying not to cry. And so I will just stop them and say, hey, it's okay for you to cry here. You need to release that emotion. When you're trying to hold everything together and you're trying to be the strong one, that's great. And I love that for you. But also, you need to come off of that and let your body actually release those emotions, because that emotion stays trapped. So I'm cry. It's good for you. It's it releases that emotion. So please, please, please let that emotion come out. If you're ever on a call with me, I will absolutely hold space for you. If you're crying, that's fine. I might cry with you, just be forewarned. But it's okay to cry. So when you, I said, when you explain your feelings instead of actually feeling them, your body doesn't get that message that it's safe to let go. And more importantly, that's what I want people to feel when they're on a coaching call with me. I want you to feel safe enough to let that emotion out, to be vulnerable, to be, bitchy if that's what you think. Because, I've had some moms say, I feel like a big bitch because, or I feel like the worst person in the world because I'm saying X, Y, and Z. Say it. You are in a safe space here with me, girlfriend. Say it. Let those emotions out. Let the tears out. It's good. Whether you're on a coaching call, whether you're in office hours, on a live Q&A, or in group coaching, please, if you were ever on a call with me, do not ever feel embarrassed, ashamed, scared, less than, please cry. Please, please, please cry. So trapped emotions don't disappear. They morph, right? Because they're just like simmering and like in there. All of the emotions are just simmering. It's like a giant pot and we're just putting them all in. So they simmer and then they morph into resentment, numbness, irritability, emotional distance. Resentment isn't random. It's an unprocessed pain with a memory, right? Like when people are like, I'm so resentful. I'm like, yeah, if we dig down and figure out like, why are you resentful? Like what's happening? A lot of it's anger. Sometimes it's fear, but most of the time it's anger. And if you're like, what's the numbness? It's just where you get to that point where you're like, I don't even care. Literally like don't care. I don't feel anything at all. I don't care if my partner's here, if they're not here, if the kids are here, if they're not here, if there's texting back and forth, I literally don't care. The emotional distance I think is really hard to come back from sometimes. It takes a lot of work where you just like that numbness and then like the emotional distance, like you just start to put that emotional distance in place. This is crazy, but I saw, I don't know, like a month or so ago, I follow Kesha and the kids on Instagram and I love her. She's hilarious and she like has a bunch of stuff, but she had posted a reel to her stories about how you know somebody's getting a divorce is when they start to find their husband or their spouse or their partner unattractive. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting because I was listening to it and I was like, oh yeah, at first you find your partner attractive, and like there are certain nuances that they have that you like, and then you just start to hate them. Like maybe they, I'm trying to think. Okay, like one thing, I like the way that my husband smells, but like if I start to hate the way that he smells, it's probably going to be a giant red flag, right? But it's just, you start to create that emotional distance and it's like a slow thing that you don't even realize is happening. Anyway, back on track. Let's talk about why stepmoms skip the ouch. And so sometimes we skip the ouch as like a defense mechanism because you don't want to be seen as insecure, right? Like when I have stepmoms on the call with me, they want to skip the ouch, like the releasing of the tears because they don't want to seem insecure. They, feel embarrassed or whatever. It's not that, but specifically like in your relationship with your partner, if you, are letting these emotions out and like, hey, I feel jealous or I feel insecure because of this, it feels like I shouldn't be feeling this. I know that I shouldn't be feeling this. But the reality of the situation is in order to get through these feelings, you actually have to name them to tame them. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I don't even remember where I've heard that. Oh my gosh, I've done so much like self-help stuff. I wish I was like an expert, but I'm not. But I'm like, oh yeah, the naming to taming was so freaking good. So stepmoms skip it because they don't want to be seen as insecure. They don't want to cause conflict. How many times has your partner said, well, the kids don't say anything or the ex-wife doesn't say anything, like you're the only one that complains? Yeah. They don't want to be the one that's the problem. No one else has anything. Like, why are you the one that's saying something? And you're like, ugh. So instead of saying that hurt, they say, I understand. And every time they do, they abandon themselves just a little bit. Or every time you say, I understand, but underneath everything, like you're still hurt and you're not vocalizing that, you're abandoning yourself just a little bit more. Let's talk about how this shows up long term. This is how resentment builds quietly. Swallowing disappointment, minimizing your needs, staying reasonable at your own expense. This is something that I've absolutely have fallen on my sword on, 100%. I can be very reasonable. Like I remember sitting at a table with the kids and my husband and being like, I'm so mad I could flip this table right now. But I said it just like that. But I was fuming, inside. I was rage screaming at them, but I was like, I could flip this table right now. And they looked at me like I was speaking alien speak with 5 heads because I seemed totally normal, but I was so freaking angry. And it's just no one gets it because I don't typically let that emotion out, but I'm like, you know what? I should probably start letting this out just a little bit more. Because then one day you're snapping over something small and thinking, why am I so angry? Why did I just flip out about a backpack being left in the middle of the mudroom? Why am I flipping out about my stepkid not taking their dish to the counter? That's when I hear the most, after dinner, and that was definitely my thing too. Why am I flipping out about them not being able to brush their teeth? Why am I flipping out about them not being able to get dressed by themselves? It's not necessarily that you're angry about that specific thing specifically. You're just backed up. There's all of these things. So let's talk about what to do instead. Before you explain, let's take a pause. We're going to name the feeling. Ouch. That stung. That felt dismissive. Or, that made me feel insert whatever. And let's validate it right away. Of course that hurt. Anyone in my position would feel this, right? Like, again, you and I could switch positions. I would be treated the exact same way. I would feel the exact same thing. But then and only then, decide if you want to reframe this. Let's process it first and then do the perspective second. So process it like, ouch, that hurt. That felt insert whatever. And then validate it. And kind of like I do to you when you're talking to me about whatever, or if you're nodding along and you're like, yeah, this sucks. I'm like, yeah, it does suck. This is a hard freaking role. And of course that's going to hurt. Anyone in my position would feel this. And then we can be like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, anyone in my position would feel this. But we have to acknowledge first that, of course, that would hurt. Let's talk a little bit about the relief of not fixing your feelings. Okay? So stay with me here, because if you are like super type A, you're like, I can just fix this. Like, watch this. Like, I'm so good at this. Like, let me just fix it. Feelings don't need permission slips. They don't need logic. They don't need to be earned. What they do need, though, is space. Space. Your feelings need space. And when you give them space, they soften on their own. When you give yourself time, space, and grace with anything, you get so much further along, because it's so freaking hard to be in the midst of everything and trying to logic your way through and trying to, like, let me just get through this and like what's going on and what's happening. That's not helpful. Sometimes we just need to sit with those emotions and be like, you know what? This does hurt. Of course it hurt. Anyone in my position, anyone in this position would be hurting. I'm going to be okay. But that's what you have to remember. I'm going to be okay, and then insert why you're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay because my partner loves me. We have a really great relationship. If you've got kids of your own, like myself and my kid or kids are safe. Or, outside of this one little blow up, here's a big one for you. Outside of this one blow up, my stepkid or my stepkids and I actually do get along. Sometimes we get so zoomed in on the weeds that we forget like what the actual big picture looks like. But when you give your feelings a little bit of space, they can soften on their own. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be okay. So just remember, you don't need to explain yourself out of your emotions. You're allowed to feel before you understand. But allow yourself to feel them. Like, of course, naturally, like you're just going to feel them immediately. But you need to allow yourself to feel them rather than stifling them down. And I think that's the hardest thing to do is feel your emotions, like I said, like in the middle of something. And let's say there's a blow up that's happening at your house, and you know that your feelings get hurt, or you know that your feelings will get hurt because it's cyclical, it's coming back. This is where it's important to have a conversation with your partner prior to moving forward and saying, hey, you know what? Sometimes when my feelings get hurt, I have a really hard time processing things. So what I need to do when that happens is I just need to take a time out for myself. That doesn't make you weak. That doesn't make you less than. That doesn't make you insecure. That doesn't make you jealous. That doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you insert whatever word or words that you've made up about what it means about yourself. It makes you human. So you can say to him like, or her, when something happens, I need to go back and just relax in our bedroom or cry to myself just for a few minutes inside the bathroom or wherever it is, wherever you need to be. I need to go for a drive. I need to go for a walk. You need to allow yourself to feel those feelings. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And here's the thing. In a few weeks, by the time this comes out, it'll be like 2 weeks, I'm going to be re-releasing Resentment to Relief. This teaches stepmoms how to feel without spiraling, how to validate without self-abandoning, how to release emotions instead of stockpiling them, because resentment isn't a character flaw. It's a signal you've been too reasonable for too long. Or if you're just looking for a place where you don't have to explain your feelings into oblivion, please come join us inside the Stepmom Side community. There are other stepmoms in there that are going through the exact same thing as you are. Some of them might be a little bit further along in their journey than you are and can help guide you, as well as me. And again, you get office hours, you get live Q&As every month, and group coaching. Come join us. And if you don't like it, you can always leave. There's no requirement for you to say. You're not signing a contract. You can cancel whenever you'd like. But I will chat with you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crosco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.